Kentucky Derby.
The turn, the leader, War Admiral, 2.5 for clean.
Secretary is in the center of the racetrack. Seattle Sloop drawing alongside again.
War Emblem is still there. War Emblem is pulling away. He's got another gear.
Yeah, the Twins they come in the Derby. Wheel away takes command.
Lion Heart is all heart. Smarty Jones is all out. And here is the first undefeated winner of the Kentucky Derby since Seattle's Slough of 1970.
And good morning, everyone, from Louisville, Kentucky. This is the Morning Workout Show presented by Twins Spires. And a beautiful morning it is. The main track is fast. The weather creeping up into the 50s. We had a beautiful day yesterday. Looks like we're poised for another one today as we continue to meander our way through the Kentucky Derby Trail. Derby week is upon us. Just about 9 days from now, we'll start the horses in the 148th Kentucky Derby. Welcome, everyone, once again to Churchill Downs, home of the Derby. Let's take a look at today's headlines. Yesterday, Crown Pride worked a bullet half-mile. We'll talk more about that here in a little bit. A work and a horse that's turning a lot of heads. We'll see how he shapes up as we work our way toward the Kentucky Derby. Also, Taba out west is scheduled to work 6 furlongs at Santa Anita this morning. More on that a little bit later, while that's significant work for him. And then finally, for those of us that like to play the races every day, opening night on Saturday and the highly anticipated debut of the $10+ million turf course here at Churchill Downs. 2 races scheduled, weather permitting. And good morning, everyone, and welcome to Twin Spires. Travis, twinspires.com. Morning Workout Show. Travis Stone, Scott Shapiro. I might call him Scott. I might call him Shap. It's great to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. Great for you to join us. Enjoyed watching you and Joe K yesterday. And as you mentioned, just 9 days out. Very exciting times here as we build up to the Kentucky Derby. And the more I look at this race, the more fascinating it becomes. We got strong field, the pace situation a little bit murky. One thing for sure, we're going to have a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's you could make a case, I think, for 8, 9, maybe even 10 of these horses. Legitimately, of course, anybody has a chance. It is the Kentucky Derby. We've seen long shots win this race many times. But it feels like there's a core group of 4 to 5 horses. They just seem fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Xandan and Epicenter highlight the group. The course is coming in from California, definitely with a major chance. And a couple Todd Pletcher runners who we'll talk to shortly, definitely in.
Scott and I are paddock side, a paddock that's going to be renovated here in the next couple of years. Looking forward to that. But on front side is Brandon Staubel. Good morning, Brandon.
Good morning, Travis. Good morning, Scott. Yeah, another cool morning up here. It's been kind of a slow morning so far. Epicenter came out, just went to the paddock, jogged with the pony, didn't gallop today. Secret Oath was out this morning, very similar, just jogged around, didn't do a whole lot. So expecting another busy break and looking forward to see what the connections of Crown Pride are going to do. Typical North American horses would take the day off, walk shed row. This isn't your typical horse or typical training style, so we'll see. Maybe they'll come back to the track again today and maybe head to the gate or get a nice gallop in, guys.
Yeah, Crown Pride, as I said, turning a lot of heads. He's on this leaderboard. This leaderboard has been stout all spring long. This has been fun to watch this develop on the way to the Kentucky Derby.
Yeah, the big horses have gotten better as we've progressed through the road to the Kentucky Derby. Epicenter, 3 wins and a second at Fairgrounds leading the way. Xandan, White Abario, then Taba, the lightly raced Santa Anita Derby winner, leading us into the second page there. Classic Causeway jumping back into the picture.
Indeed, and then of course there's some early voting's not totally confirmed for the race. A couple of horses trying to sneak their way in. I'm expecting a full gate come at least draw time. A few horses on the outside looking in right now. Pioneer Medina, who was in, now out. We'll find out what happens with early voting, who is a little bit dubious as to whether or not they're going to run. It's going to be a game time decision. Not a game time decision is the presence of horses like Donegal and Charge It and Pioneer of Medina for trainer Todd Pletcher, who knows what it takes to win the Kentucky Derby. And he joins us from the backstretch here at Churchill Downs. Good morning, Todd. How are you doing this morning?
Doing great. Good morning.
Yeah, appreciate you joining us. Let's start with Donegal, a horse that ran really well as a 2-year-old. He was right there with Zandon on the wire in the Remsen, but he felt like he was maybe a little bit green, figuring some things out. In his first race back this year, ran in spots, but man, that Wood Memorial was such a professional effort. Speak to Donegal a little bit.
Yeah, I love those performance in the Wood. You know, to finish that way at Aqueduct, you don't see too many horses come home in 23-2. That was a professional effort. He took a lot of dirt. Got a great education doing it, so, you know, really, really pleased with that. And like everyone else, we'll be hoping to work out a good trip in the Derby.
Speaking of trip, you have Irad Ortiz Jr. Are you the type of trainer that likes to give instructions, or do you leave it up to them without tipping your hand? What sort of conversations will you have with Irad leading into the race?
Well, a lot of it will just be basic strategy and kind of, once we see the post position draws. A lot of it you can control, some of it, and a lot of it you can't. But, in Always Dreaming's case, when John Velasquez and I went over kind of what our strategy would be, everything fell into place exactly the way we had talked about it. That doesn't happen very often.
Todd, let's switch gears to Charge It. Colt that obviously bred to be a star, has a ton of talent, but comes in with a lot less experience than some of his rivals, including Mo Donegal. Certainly hasn't done a lot wrong, but still learning things. Has he taken a significant step forward since his effort in the Florida Derby from a mental perspective?
He's trained super. I mean, he had a really good breeze at Palm Beach Downs before we left. His breeze over the track here I thought was awesome. Super gallop out, seemed to take to the track. He's a typical Tappet. Sometimes it takes him a time or two to figure things out. I think he's got all the talent in the world. It's just a matter of, if he has enough seasoning. And that was sort of the risk we took by going from a maiden race to the Florida Derby. We could have went a different route, maybe had 2 preps, but we decided to go that way. And, I think he learned a lot in the Florida Derby. Hopefully he's learned more since then and can take another step forward.
Todd, Brandon Staubel here. Let's talk about Pioneer of Medina. Had a nice workout over the surface. Seemed like he was a go for the Derby. You got knocked down to 21st. I assume you're just going to train this horse like you're going to be in the Kentucky Derby. And then if you don't get in, do you think maybe you'll go ahead and still stay here and maybe enter the Pat Day Mile?
Well, we are going to prepare as though he's going to run in the Derby, and we'll see how he breezes back on Saturday. I have a feeling that he'll draw in, but if he doesn't, we'll talk about the possibilities. I'd say the Peter Pan at Belmont would probably be a more likely scenario than the Pat Day Mile.
Todd, we're talking about Colts, but you've got a couple of fillies pointed to the Kentucky Oaks on Friday, including Nest, who won her debut, which is hard to do, and she's been talented all throughout, but her most recent race, the Ashland, really felt like it was a breakthrough effort.
Thought it was a huge effort. She's a filly that's just progressively gotten better and better. She's bred that way. She's already won at 1 1/8. Thought her Ashland performance was superb, and she trained well since she's been here. So everything seems to be pointing in the right direction. This looks like a stellar field in the Oaks, but she's certainly one of the ones that makes it a good race.
No doubt about it with Nest. You got a couple of other fillies in there, Chad Shahama and Goddess of Fire, who worked together last week. But let's talk about Shahama, who I find to be a pretty tough horse to handicap. Visually very impressive overseas. Hasn't raced, though, in 3 months. Has had a little bit of gait issues. Talk about how you think she fits with this bunch.
Yeah, she typically hasn't jumped real well from the gate, and her behavior is excellent. We've done some work with her at the gate. Doesn't seem to be a behavioral issue. Just doesn't really fire away from there. So I think she's a filly that'll probably be mid-pack. But we've been really pleased with the way she's trained, and we've been able to train her with some other nice fillies, and she's held her own. Don't know what she was beating in Dubai, but anytime you're 4 for 4, no matter where you're doing it, that's hard to do.
And there's Shahama there. She's got that distinctive white blaze. Todd, thank you for joining us this morning. We appreciate it. We know you're busy. Got a lot of horses going out to the track here in a little bit with the training hours coming up. But best of luck in the Oaks and the Derby, and we'll see you around Churchill this week.
Okay, thank you.
Todd Pletcher, trainer of Mo Donegal and Charge It, and we could list his horses for hours. It really feels like he has a strong hand this year. Yeah, Nest to me is probably the likeliest winner in the Kentucky Oaks, and then in terms of the Derby, as he talked about it, Mo Donegal need the right trip. Charge It going to need to take that mental step forward, but lots of talent in that barn as always. It feels like he's got one of those horses, the 2 horses that mentally are making their way to the Derby in the right way, but they're going to have to take that step forward. We'll see what happens. Many of them have to take a step forward. Sure. It's the toughest race of the year. Another horse is tough to figure out, let's say, is Crown Pride, who has been at Churchill Downs for a while now and has just been turning heads with an unorthodox training style. Yeah, well, you spoke about it a little bit yesterday. We think of it as an unorthodox style, but not necessarily unorthodox to them. And coming over here, to the States, changing things up would be odd. But, as a handicapper, a lot of guesswork involved with a horse like Crown Pride, but I've been impressed with what I've seen both on replays and then here in the mornings. And Brandon, he has just been unconventional for what we're used to by him American standards in terms of training. They do a lot every morning, it seems.
Yeah, the funny thing yesterday was it was actually a pretty conventional work. Went from the 5 furlong poles where I took them, started a couple links behind Southern Passage for Dale Romans. Was asked a little bit to finish up down the lane. I had it, official time was 46-2. I had it in 59 and change, and I thought he went really well. He showed a little bit of turn of foot, something he hadn't shown yet, guys.
Masa Matsuda, the training assistant and exercise rider, we spoke with him yesterday. A horse, like we've said, just a bit of an unconventional sort of approach to the Kentucky Derby. We're not used to these sorts of things. He was doing figure eights and he was doing circles and he was just doing things we're not used to. Let's find out from Masa Matsuda, the training assistant for Crown Pride.
In Japan, we need a lot of warming up, 10-15 minutes. Then we go to counter. That is, I want to make moving good. Then I want to go to counter and galloping. So different. But this is Japanese way. Yeah, I want to do that.
調教後にも結構また1マイルぐらいが歩きました。どうして？
It's just cooling down. So and also this is a Japanese way. So if I go to anywhere, I can't change training and warming up and cooling down. That's all.
These Japanese are winning races around the world. They were successful at the Breeders' Cup in Saudi and Dubai. Big chance.
Big chance. It's a different ball game as a 3-year-old coming in here for the Kentucky Derby with the environment that he's going to be in, as well as the 20-horse field. But he's done a lot of things right, and he's going to be a pretty good price. So if you're a gambler like I am, you got to give him a serious look.
And if you'd like to ask Scott some questions, you can do so, and it's going to be free of charge today. All you got to do is use the hashtag KYDerby. Send us your questions wherever you may be watching today's workout show, and Shap is on deck, ready to answer those questions, and we'll see. Maybe we'll get a good question for you and put you on the spot, find out who your 1, 2, 3, 4s are for the Derby.
I hope so, but I can always lean on Brandon if need be.
There you go. And, of course, we're talking about workouts and getting horses ready, but things really ramp up on Monday when we draw the Oaks and the Derby, both happening at the same time. We've usually done them back-to-back days. They're all going to happen in one shot, 2 o'clock on Monday. And, of course, you can watch that on Facebook and throughout all the social media channels. The post-position draw presented by Ford, Oaks and Derby, coming up on Monday, 2 o'clock. All right, so as we meander our way through the morning, we're approaching the workout session for the Derby horses. A little bit more an epicenter when we come back from a brief break. Back to you after this.
For the fastest 2 minutes in sports, speed might be the only thing that matters. And when you hear the call to post for Saturday's Kentucky Derby, one of the fastest ways to bet is right from your phone. Race to the Twins Spires app, where you can earn your money back if your horse finishes second or third. All week long, on every eligible race at Churchill Downs, including the Kentucky Derby. Twins Spires. Download the app now.
Kentucky Derby, Woodford Reserve Bourbon is a spectacle for the senses.
And the sun rising up over the football stadium just down the road here from Churchill Downs in Louisville, Kentucky, home to, of course, the Kentucky Derby, just 9 days away from now. And it is a beautiful morning. If you're not out here and you're in the Louisville area, please do your best to make your way out. This is a fantastic experience watching these Derby and Oaks horses train and get ready for the Kentucky Derby and, of course, the Kentucky Oaks. Travis Stone alongside Scott Shapiro. Brandon Staubel is here as well. We're getting close.
We are, and the weather cooperating today. You looked a little chilly out here yesterday, but about 10 degrees warmer, I think.
I'm an upstate New Yorker. That got me a little bit yesterday, and it was early. I couldn't do this training thing where you have to get up at 4:35 every morning. I like to stay up too late.
I thought you were a little tougher. I was surprised you were cold from upstate New York, but
yeah, it is what it is. So we are meandering our way toward the Kentucky Derby. Things happen all the time, and one of the things that happened this week was Classic Causeway, who was out, is now back in.
He is, and he could become a factor in the early going. What I find most interesting about Classic Causeway is his ability to get out of the gate, Travis. Now, hanging around was an issue in the Florida Derby. He backed through the field in there, surprisingly, to some after 2 impressive efforts in Tampa. And I think a lot of people are going to compare him maybe to Mandaloun, who try to if they're trying to make a case for him, who also put a clunker in his final prep, but I don't know if I can be as forgiving.
Classic Causeway ran in the Kentucky Jockey Club last year here at Churchill Downs. But the question for him, and I think to stay them on a quarter distance, he has talent going shorter distances, and it was sort of believed they were going to think about going to the Pat Day Mile with him. But that extra quarter mile going to a mile to a mile and a quarter, that's a lot.
Yeah, distance concerns potentially, maybe just class concerns. Those fields in Tampa weren't quite what he faced in the Florida Derby, and we saw. But sounds like they're expecting him to bounce back.
Horses are like humans. Sometimes they can throw in some clunkers, and trainer Brian Lynch, who originally was sort of on the fence of running in the Kentucky Derby, spoke with us yesterday about Classic Causeway back in. Oh, we'll go to Brandon first on Classic Causeway. Sorry, Brandon, go ahead.
Oh, it's good. So yesterday, this is the video we're seeing. Went to the paddock with Brian Lynch. He was on the pony, and then Brian Lynch took him down to the turn, and just an easy gallop yesterday. You can see the ears kind of flicking back and forth. I thought he moved fine. He breezed last week, and in company kind of blew away the workmate, but the final time wasn't much. They probably weren't looking for a whole lot. Last quarter was like 24 and change. So probably a more serious work now that they're going to run in the race, but he seems to be moving fine, and hopefully we'll get a look at him. He was not out this morning, so I expect him to see him at the 7:30 session.
Certainly a potential pace factor. We'll go from one B to the other B. Brandon, now we'll talk to Brian Lynch, trainer of Classic Causeway.
Well, after the Florida Derby, we, regrouped and made sure everything was all right, and I just wanted to take him off the radar so it takes the pressure off everybody. And, we gave him a complete once-over, and he was sound and happy, and everything seemed fine with him, so we trained on, and, we got a couple of works back into him. Irad worked him last weekend, thought he worked unbelievable. The horse is eating the bottom out of the feed tub, showing every sign that he's feeling good, and, so owners were always very keen to run in the Derby. I was the one who was digging his toes in, but... after being with the horse every day and watching him train every day, he just gave me the confidence to put a line through his last race and move forward with the Derby. He's going to have his final work. He'll probably work 6 furlongs. And then we'll just, keep him as happy and healthy as we can between then and the following Saturday, do lots of schooling with him.
There's Classic Causeway, and he figures to be a pace. I would say he's probably going to be on or near the lead, but Julian Leparoux, we watch races here in Kentucky all the time, is not exactly the most aggressive rider in the barn. He likes to maybe the more turfy trip, find a place to settle. Where do you project Classic Causeway early on?
Well, the way he breaks, assuming Julian gets him out of the gate like he has in the past, it's hard to not think he's going to be involved early, but a good comment by you, because Julian's never been aboard. I'm a guy that likes to try to relax his horses. He'll need Classic Causeway to take him to the front if he's to be there.
A horse that figures to be somewhat near the front, could be on the lead, could be rating, could be a little bit farther off, is Epicenter, who of course leads the Kentucky Derby leaderboard. He's likely to be the morning line favorite. Xandan getting a lot of buzz though. Epicenter.
Hard to knock this son of Not This Time, giving Steve Asmussen his best chance yet at winning a Kentucky Derby. But you mentioned it, the key for this race for Epicenter, or maybe just something to look out for, is what Joel Rosario does. We thought of him as a speed horse all along, but then he surprised us a little bit in the Louisiana Derby, taking him off the pace. It definitely gives them options though.
Epicenter came out earlier this morning, and Brandon, trainer Steve Asmussen, he has of course won many big races, still seeking his first Kentucky Derby win. It feels like he does a great job of getting his horses to peak when it counts.
He does. There's many trainers you could want to have a horse training them for the big race. But man, there might not be anybody better than Steve. Just the little details. You can see Epicenter here in the paddock this morning. Yesterday went to the gate and had a gallop. A little bit different today, though. He did go to the paddock, as we see here, but when he came back out on track, they just jogged around, no gallop today. So it's just interesting how these trainers will really kind of fine-tune things, and maybe just wanted to give him a little extra rest possibly, but handled himself well in the paddock. There he is this morning. So he did get a gallop. That was earlier today. Must have been the later part of the session there. So just a nice, easy gallop. He's moving well. The biggest thing I like about this horse is his demeanor. Every time he comes on track, he never really turns a hair. Great mind on this horse, and very relaxed. Seems like he's going to be peaking up to the Derby.
Brandon, Steve Asmussen is not a trainer that publishes a lot of bullet workouts. His workouts seem a little bit more methodical, a little bit more focused or intentional. Speak to that a little bit, because a lot of times you want to see these faster workouts leading to the Derby, but Steve never seems to do that.
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't want to, we talk about the minds on the horse. You don't want to blow the mind on the horse by having him work fast all the time. You can see the ears kind of flicking back and forth, just really listening to the rider, and that's been taught really since they were babies, getting them to relax and just be able to sit behind horses if they need to. But all the works are usually the stiffer works in company, and also just very relaxed. If they do work a fast time, it's usually on their own.
Epicenter developing 3-year-old certainly figures to be a major player in the Derby. Another is Cyberknife, who was not even in the Derby picture for a while late last year into this year, and all of a sudden bursts on the scene with a big win down at Arkansas.
Always highly regarded by the Brad Cox barn, but the physical talent was obvious from the get-go, but the mental approach or the mental ability to relax was certainly not there. Struggled in a couple of those starts, but really put things together at Fairgrounds, and then the win to get him into the Kentucky Derby, in the Arkansas Derby. This is going to be a much tougher group. It always is a much tougher group in the Kentucky Derby, but a kind of weak group in Arkansas. I'm going to be keeping my eyes specifically to where Cyberknife draws, one of the more important horses. I think if he draws inside, it really hurts his chances.
Brandon, every Kentucky Derby we hear about buzz horses, horses that are turning eyes in the morning, and there's no doubt about it, Cyberknife is one that does.
Yeah, I mean, his last work was it was great. I mean, especially the gallop out. We had the advantage of the GoPro with Laurent Giroux aboard, and you could just see how loaded he was. Took off from the maid down the lane, and then galloped out strong around the turn. Here was the gallop from yesterday. When this is what you want to see. I mean, you want to see this what I call controlled energy out of the works. Not that they're running off, but just looking like they're wanting to do some more. You can see the ears prick there. Yeah, he is kind of pulling a little bit, but Ryder does a good job of just trying to keep him under restraint. But this is kind of the energy you want to see out of a work.
Cyberknife certainly probably going to tick a few points down in the odds board with some of the workouts he's been having. Let's talk about the other Brad, Zozos, a horse that I actually might think it's a better chance than Cyberknife.
Yeah, I'm with you. He's been growing on me. Lots to like, just 3 career races, but it seems to have the mental part of the game down a bit more than his stablemate, and he showed it with that impressive win. First try, 2 turns, first try against winners at Oaklawn, and then showed a new tactic. We've talked about how Epicenter came from a little bit off the pace in the Louisiana Derby. Zozos, instead of stalking off the pace, went to the lead that day, and it sounds like from your interview with Brad Cox yesterday that they're going to be relatively aggressive from the gate. If he takes them to the lead, they'll be fine. If he sits just off, but I think he's coming into the race the right way and a good price.
Brandon, his pedigree does not really scream 10 furlongs. Anything that you've seen in the morning that would indicate that it might not be a problem?
Yeah, I mean, just the fact that his talent. I mean, I think that's what's going to help him carry. He's very talented. The work the other day was good. It was fast, but he wasn't running off. He galloped out strong. And then obviously his trainer, too. I mean, he knows how to bring a horse up to a big race and help them get the distance. But I think more than anything, you talked about the pedigree. Just, maybe he's reaching the end of that pedigree, but I just think he's so talented. Sometimes they just outrun the pedigree.
There's Zozos galloping here at Churchill Downs. Another good-looking horse out of the Brad Cox barn. Speaking of good-looking horses, I know you're excited to talk about this guy, Xandan, who won the Bluegrass Stakes and was most impressive for trainer Chad Brown. I think it's official. He's going to threaten Epicenter when the odds open up for a little while. We'll see how long. Xandan.
Yeah, it's a little disappointing in terms of that, but some of us are at the Kentucky Derby future pool. So people that got in a pool 156-1, they got to be very excited about what they're seeing, and it seems like Chad Brown is going to be a key to get out of the gate. He's got the hottest rider in the game, maybe the best in the game in Flavian Pratt. I think if he gets out of the gate, he'll sit closer to the pace than people think. No doubt about it, though, he's going to be finishing well.
And Brandon, when you hear Chad talk about Xandan, first off, you can just feel the confidence that he has, and for good reason. This is one good-looking horse.
Yeah, I mean, he's beautiful. Second day galloping yesterday, and looked a carbon copy of the first day he was on track. The work at Keeneland was special, and this horse just ultra talented. He's got a big-time reach up front, no problems with the distance, and he's just doing everything you want from a horse like this. Like we talked about the energy level, he's showing that energy, that controlled energy, where he's kind of pulling a little bit, but he's relaxed. He's just wanting to do more, really enjoying his job out there.
Xandan figures to be one of the shorter prices next weekend in the Kentucky Derby. One of the longer prices figures to be Barber Road. It is the Derby. There's 20 horses. The pace can get hot, and many times, you know, the underneath type positions in the trifectas and superfectas are occupied by horses like Barber Road.
Great story. Sold for just $15,000. Has obviously earned far, far more than that this far. You know, another horse coming in from Arkansas, probably the weaker, one of the weaker prep races, or a series of weaker prep races. Going to have to run faster, going to have to get a perfect trip to even hit the board, in my opinion, but I do think a lot of people are putting him in consideration for those third and fourth slots in the superfecta.
Brandon, in every prep race, Barber Road has at least put in his run. That consistency has to mean something come Derby Day.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of talked about this off air the first day we were on the show. For me, he's a horse that might be one of those ones you want to maybe key in the fourth spot, because you know he's just going to be passing tired horses. He trains pretty good. He's not the biggest individual in the world, but, you know, he just runs hard. He seems to enjoy his job. The work here the other day, I mean, I commend Johnny Ortiz for pulling out the 6 furlong work with the mile gallop out, because a lot of guys, when they get here for the first time, they'll kind of back off a little bit. So I definitely like the way that he's training this horse into the race, and I expect him to run his race. Whether it's good enough to win, we don't know, but I could definitely see this horse filling out the superfecta.
If you like Barber Road, you will get a really good price. He's got to be at least 50 to 1, if not 75 to 1 come post time. He'll be coming from off the pace next Saturday, next Friday, the Kentucky Oaks. This is a race this year where the points have mattered. If you don't have points, you're not in.
Yeah, going to be a full field at the gate, and very top heavy to an extent. At least it will be when we look up at the tote board. Cathlino, Echo, Zulu, and Nest, the top 3, all likely to take a ton of public support, as well as Secret Oath, who's in that 8th spot after skipping a Philly prep race to run in the Arkansas Derby.
Nostalgic is a horse that comes from Aqueduct, who sort of snuck up the rail in their most recent prep race for this Kentucky Oaks. Good-looking horse. That was a good trip. But you had mentioned off air that she might be developing and coming into the race the right way.
She hasn't done a lot wrong. When Bill Mott horses win first time out, you know, you want to take notice, not necessarily part of his goals. Usually a lot of talent there, and was pretty impressive. And what I really noticed, is, other than you said progressing well, is she's been a little closer to the pace in the last couple of starts, which is going to be key, because we don't know if there's going to be a whole lot of pace in the Kentucky Oaks this year.
Brandon, Nostalgic, like Scott said, might be close to the pace and what figures to be a bit of a moderate pace.
Yeah, and I think, you know, she's handled herself well here on track as well. I think, you know, with a Bill Mott horse, they always really are just very primed, especially here at Churchill Downs.
Echo Zulu, and there she is, last year's champion 2-year-old filly this morning. Has already been out at Churchill Downs. A little bit of a polarizing horse this year, because she was so good as a 2-year-old, but a return race, which many thought was a little bit later than what they maybe had planned, wasn't quite as fast as some of her 2-year-old filly form.
Yeah, normally you'd like to see at least to get back to that 2-year-old form, if not move forward. Understandable not to take a big step forward if you had 80% and kind of needed the race, but you know, you're supposed to move forward as a 3-year-old. But Echo Zulu going to be out there on the lead. Steve Asmussen's won a couple of Kentucky Oaks in the past. She'll take some catching.
Echo Zulu. Does she go morning line favorite?
She might be the morning line favorite, but it does seem to me that enough people are kind of willing to take chances against her. I think one horse, or at least one, maybe two, will be favored over her.
Speaking of taking chances and making gambles and handicapping horses, we have a couple of Twin Spires offers we have to think about coming up this week for the Kentucky Derby. If you're not on Twin Spires, get on twinspires.com. It's the place to play the races, and you can see folks like Shap. Oh, speaking of, how about that?
Expert picks. You can watch myself for the Kentucky Derby week, as well as the entire Churchill Downs meet. Other great handicappers on there: Nick Tamero, Darren Zocali, Joe Christopher, Kevin Gilroy. And what I like most about these, when I haven't put the full amount of time, or I'm getting backed up and want to jump into another card, is, you know, it's very quick to watch. Doesn't mean you have to lean just on the horses that any of us say, but can give you some ideas maybe if you're spreading out in a pick 3, pick 4 type environment. But yeah, very, very good stuff, as well as the $25 risk risk-free bet.
If you had a $25 risk-free bet, first tell us what it is. Who would you put your $25 bet on?
I'd bet on you.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Nice.
But, yeah, I mean, we assume a lot of you out there are Twins Spires members. But if not, what are you waiting for? Just use the offer code GET25 at sign-up on your computer or mobile device. Wagering on Twins Spires is absolutely as fun as can be and easy to use, Travis.
Who would be your risk-free bet? I'm putting you on the spot.
Derby?
Yeah.
You know, it wouldn't make... To me, it doesn't make a lot of sense usually to bet it on a favorite. You know, Xandan is a horse that I'm very high on. But to me, I'm going to lean on a horse at a bigger price. That's a good question. I'm going to have to get back to you on that.
All right, we'll be back after a break here. The Derby and Oaks horses are getting set to make their way out. Special training session for them. That's coming up after this.
Race to the Twin Spires app where you can earn your money back if your horse finishes second or third all week long on every eligible race at Churchill Downs, including the Kentucky Derby. Twin Spires. Download the app now.
Longines.
And welcome back to Churchill Downs. And there you can see Pioneer of Medina poised to come out onto the track. The special session for Derby and Oaks horses is now. It means the track is closed down to the rest of the horses here at Churchill. It's purely for them, a great opportunity to check out these three-year-olds.
And a great thing that we do here at Churchill Downs, whether you're out here in the mornings or you're watching us on many of those social channels, just so unique to be able to watch these horses train without anybody, I hate to say in their way, but, you know, very open track. And there'll be lots going on in the next coming days, but I really appreciate the efforts here.
And, of course, if you're tuning in, use hashtag KYDerby to ask our panel of experts a question. And, Brandon, here they come onto the track, and it looks like, no surprise, Todd Pletcher, whose program has been successful for decades now, leading the way.
Yeah, they've led the way the whole time. There's Charge It on the screen. We've also got Classic Causeway that's going to be coming on, and Summers tomorrow is just kind of doing a few circles, getting ready to come on. But, yeah, the Todd squad back in action. And, you know, I mean, the biggest thing with him, they're always fit. I mean, all these horses, they look beautiful in the flesh, never going to have any issues with distance. He has them physically prepared, mentally prepared. So, you know, when you're a clocker, a workout analyst, it's a pleasure to watch these kind of horses come out and train. They're just really beautiful to watch.
Tell us about things that you're looking for. Obviously, this is not necessarily a big work day for these horses. This is sort of more of a daily routine exercise. What are some of the things you're looking for? And also, what do you not want to see from them? So
one of the first things we'll look for when they're coming on track, I know it seems kind of, you know, a little goofy, but the jog itself, I mean, you just want to see that a horse is moving well. You know, if the horse can't really even get into a good jog coming onto the track, that's kind of a negative for me. I mean, it's not something that I'm just going to completely toss the horse, but you just want to see that they're moving well, starting with the jog, and then they'll come down and settle and usually just kind of take things in for a little bit and then begin their gallops. But especially with a race like this, you know, obviously the track is closed right now, but we're looking for good demeanors, good attitudes, just professionalism, and then you know, then we might look at the flesh a little bit. I alluded to, you know, the coat and just the way the horse looks physically, maybe how the hind end looks, particularly for horses, maybe they're coming out of workouts. If they're showing a little bit of a decreased energy level, we want to see in the next couple of days following, does that pick up? So those are kind of, you know, there's a lot to look at, but you just try to kind of take everything in little bits and pieces, not try to judge them too harshly. You know, every horse is an individual, but like I said, it all starts with the jog. Have a good jog out. Usually that's going to translate into a good gallop, and you just want to see that they're behaving themselves very professional out here.
Pioneer of Medina, Scott, is considered to be probably Todd's third string. He's got, of course, two big chances with Mo Donegal and Charge It, but Pioneer Medina comes out of the sharpest, or I should say the keyest races down south, and as did Cyberknife coming out of the races down in Arkansas.
Yeah, Pioneer Medina, third place and fourth place effort in those highly competitive fairgrounds races. Cyberknife was training a lot in New Orleans where those races were run, but was shipped to Arkansas for the Arkansas Derby at Oaklawn Park, and proved to be a successful move for trainer Brad Cox, as Brandon's talked about. A lot of people have talked about this horse. Has always wowed people in the mornings with how he's trained. Seems like he's doing as well as ever.
Yeah, Brandon, we talked about it earlier. That Buzz horse, if Cyberknife is not it, it's probably Xandan, but Cyberknife just does everything right in the mornings.
Yeah, you mentioned Mandaloon earlier. You know, I'm not comparing the two, but as far as the workouts go, I mean, last year we did see that big workout for Mandaloon. It kind of seems like it's a really similar profile. Obviously, the barn will work them hard around the turn, get them to gallop out, but that's kind of what it reminds me of a little bit, is that work we saw from Mandaloon.
There's Mo Donegal on screen, of course, won that Wood more. I was just most impressed with that Wood, because early voting's a very good 3-year-old who got loose on the lead, did not set a particularly fast pace. It was honest. It wasn't slow. It was honest. And Mo Donegal just made every right move. Whatever Joel wanted him to do, he did, and then he ran down early voting.
Yeah, and that track was not necessarily playing towards Mo Donegal's style. Huge number, 111 on Briz, a career best by a couple points on the thoroughgraphs. Has done his best running at the 1 1/8 distance. The shorter the distances have been a little less underwhelming. So you would think, based on watching this horse, based on his running style, his pedigree, all of the above, that the 1 1/4 would be within his scope. He's going to need to work out a trip. Has one of the best guys in the game to do so in Irad Ortiz Jr.
Irad Ortiz Jr. is certainly one of the top 3 riders in the country. And like you said, the trip's going to be key. But it's key for everybody. There's 20 horses. You just never know. And one of the questions we got asked on social media is post position and how that affects some horses, and you know, whether or not it's going to dictate terms in terms of our handicapping and wagering. For a horse like Mo Donegal, I don't know if post matters. This is going to drop back and make one run.
Yeah, I think with a horse like that, I would prefer maybe to be towards the inside. But like you said, I mean, you're going to drop back anyway. If you get to 20, 19, 18, it may force your hand, because this horse on paper may have a little more tactical speed. We talked about it a little offline, but you know, this horse doesn't have to be 16th. He could be 10th if he gets the right break and whatnot, but he's definitely going to be off the pace.
Brandon, how's Mo Donegal looking out there?
Looks good. You know, like you talked about what to look for. We want to see that the horse looks pretty much the same that he was the day before, as long as those are all positive signs. And I think that's what we're seeing from Mo Donegal right now. He seems to get over the track just fine. Really interested to see how this next workout goes over the weekend. Just kind of an easy half mile here in the previous work. Just something to kind of, you know, stretch his legs a little bit. I assume Todd's going to go ahead and let this one run a little bit. But he looks great down the lane, just ears pricked, just out there kind of just loping along. He looks nice and controlled and relaxed.
There's just no concern with Mo Donegal going 10 furlongs. It feels like he could run all day.
Yeah, and it's almost like we've been waiting for him to go 10 furlongs. The Holy Bull, the 1 16th, you know, a race that he was probably the best horse in, or one of them, but kind of knew that the short stretch was going to be a challenge off the bench. He gets to these 9 furlong races, has run his best. You know, one of those horses, you know, you need to be sitting on your best race to win the Kentucky Derby. He feels like he's one of those horses.
Churchill Downs is a very long stretch from the top of the stretch to the wire. It's just about a 1/4 of a mile. Many of the racetracks that they prep on coming into this race, the stretch is not quite as long. That suits a horse like Mo Donegal, gives him plenty of time to sort of get those legs going and make that run.
Exactly. The opposite of Gulfstream Park's 1 16th, the Holy Bull. And, you know, Steve Asmussen talked about that with Epicenter, how that was a distinct advantage in running in the Louisiana Derby. It's the race that replicates the Kentucky Derby most, a lot of because of the distance, but a lot of it because of that long run.
Keep those questions coming in. Hashtag KY Derby for us. Brandon, one of the questions we had was, do the jockeys that ride the horses in the afternoon ride these horses in the morning? And sometimes for workouts, but sometimes not.
Yeah, sometimes for workouts, not usually for gallops. Now, there has been exceptions in the past. Art Collector is a horse that comes to mind. Brian Hernandez would get on Art Collector a few times in the morning to gallop him. But most of the times it's going to be workouts, and usually the more serious workouts.
Here's a look at Charge It, who is a strong second in the Florida Derby to White Abarrio. As we've mentioned, as a horse is going to have to take a step forward, but it feels like if he can figure some of that mental stuff out, he's got those bloodlines that make him sort of wander about a little bit. He feels like he could be a major player.
Yeah, the bloodline, speaking of Tap It, but the Damn I'll Take Charge. Very serious female family. She's a half to Will Take Charge, who won the Travers, the Pennsylvania Derby, almost won the Breeders' Cup Classic. This horse has a ton of talent. It's obvious. It's kind of hard to count on a horse to really, you know, figure things out mentally in the Kentucky Derby. He's going to have to do that. A little all over the place in the Florida Derby, but the talent, Travis, is pretty obvious.
Yeah, but Scott, you put that white bridle on in the barn of Todd Pletcher. If anybody can figure out how to get these horses ready for a race like the Derby, it is him. Brandon, Charge It. He's that Tap It. He just looks like a Tap It, doesn't he?
He does. You know, I love the way this horse is, Charge It, is getting over the surface. Beautiful. He's one of the most elegant individuals out here. He just travels over the surface so well.
Speaking of things to look at, Brandon, here's Classic Causeway, who figures to at least be a pace player when they come by us the first time. Those ears are pretty forward on Classic Causeway.
Yeah, Classic Causeway. I was trying to think. I think that might be Summer is Tomorrow, guys. Yeah, Summer is Tomorrow. Yeah, finishing up his gallop there. He didn't do a whole lot other than his normal gallop. We can see there's Cyberknife on the screen. So just kind of touching on Classic Causeway, we saw him in the morning yesterday. We got to see him today. He galloped a little bit. Interesting to note that Brian Lynch says he's going to go 6 furlongs, so they're going to put a pretty stiff work into him before the race.
And we saw Summer is Tomorrow there, who also figures to be a pretty prominent pace player. If he can get out of the gate, always a question mark for horses coming overseas.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of them struggle out of the gates. Not sure they have the speed of Summer is Tomorrow, who's basically a sprinter until the last start, the UAE Derby, when he tried to take them all the way and was run down by Crown Pride, but ran a very big race. And there we see Cyberknife. You know, for me, it's tough to think about because we know this horse is going to wow us in the mornings. Now, he seems to be wowing even more than he always has. But will that translate to the afternoons? If he starts taking more and more money because of his afternoon stuff as a gambler, as a handicapper, I'm going to lean towards fading him.
It just feels like he first of all, has to get faster on speed figures. He's a little bit slower than some of the others. And those Arkansas races, I'm just not bullish about him.
No, this is by far the toughest field he's ever faced. The Fairgrounds first level allowance event was a solid group. Didn't pan out quite as well as I thought when he was going into that. And then the Arkansas Derby, just, you know, there's a couple horses, Barber Road, Unoho, and then we have Secret Oath in the Kentucky Oaks. But, yeah, tougher task and working out a trip. If he draws towards the inside, as I mentioned earlier, that would be even more of a negative for me. An outside post might give him a better chance, Travis.
Speaking of Arkansas Derby, they moved that race up the calendar. It used to be 3 weeks out from the Kentucky Derby, and one of the questions we got on social media, what does that mean, that extra week coming into this race?
I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. I think, you know, this year was for April 2nd. I think
2 weeks. It's
extra 2 weeks. Yeah, I think 2 weeks is beneficial. I think the 6 weeks has always been a question. You know, Fairgrounds, the Prep, Louisiana Derby, is that too long? I'm not so sure it is or isn't. I think it has to do a lot with the quality of the horses. But 5 weeks is probably ideal, maybe 4. Having it pushed back a little probably benefits the horses if they are good enough. It's not going to make someone good enough, no matter where it is on the calendar.
Brandon, we're all old enough to remember when 5 weeks was considered a no-no, getting horses ready for the Kentucky Derby, and it's now more the norm.
Yeah, it is. You know, I mean, we do see a horse like Tawny Poor coming back in 3 weeks rest, but like you said, now that's not really normal. Trainers like plenty of time in between races. They like to put those workouts into them and make sure they get the good gallop out and just bring them in as fresh as possible. I think the training has changed a little bit too. Like I said, more focus on the fitness in the mornings and then let it roll during race day.
Here's a look at Barber Road. We talked about he's a horse that's probably, if he's not last early, he's going to be near last. He's a horse that just likes to make one big, long, sweeping run. Raylu Gutierrez, just a fascinating story. Went to college, got a degree in exercise science, something I'm not familiar with whatsoever, and decided to become a jockey, and here he is riding in the Kentucky Derby.
Very sharp guy that is a pleasure to interview, pleasure to be around, and has really made the most of his opportunities here in Kentucky and on this circuits he's been involved in over the last year. He's got a challenge here. You know, there's other horses that have, in my opinion, are faster that are coming from off the pace and a stronger late punch. It's his first Kentucky Derby. He's going to have to be patient to give this horse the best chance at, hitting the board. I think it's an extreme reach to win the race. Can he be patient enough, Raylu, that is, to give Barber Road his best chance?
Barber Road is going to need some pace, and a horse that figures potentially provide some of that pace is Classic Causeway, who has some speed. Whether or not it's Derby speed and gets him on the front early is going to be the question there. And we have some video of Classic Causeway here coming up shortly. A horse that was out, in, now he's back in.
Interesting. He dominated those two Tampa Bay Downs races, the Sam F. Davis and the Tampa Bay Derby, but you mentioned whether his speed is legitimate Derby speed. Soft paces, and talked about it before, how he pops the gate to really put himself into the right spot. But going to be interesting to see if he can bounce back from that Florida Derby, which was in many ways too poor to believe, but it was definitely tougher competition.
Brandon, Brian Lynch mentioned working Classic Causeway 6 furlongs, which is probably on the higher end of the average workout distance horses tend to go. Does that signal Lynch thinking we need some speed, or is that more about fitness and stamina?
I would think maybe a little bit of both, but maybe kind of leaning towards more the fitness, just considering the poor effort in the last race, and maybe didn't get out as much out of that race as probably need be. So, you know, he's the trainer. He's going to judge his horse's fitness by watching him come out in the mornings and train. But that's probably my thinking, is it didn't get a lot out of the race maybe, and so we want to make sure that you know, if going that mile and a quarter, he's going to have plenty of fitness.
There are a lot of questions around horses like Classic Causeway, but there's very few questions around horses like Xandan, who is turning heads, has done very little wrong, just looks the part on the racetrack, and I know you like him. I
do like him. If I wanted to kind of dive into a question mark or a concern, backing him at 4, 5 to 1, whatever it might be, come post time, it's getting out of the gate. He didn't have that issue in the Remsen, which was his best race as a 2-year-old, just his second start, but he has shown those issues in his first 2 starts. It's tough to overcome being last in the Kentucky Derby. If you're really special, you can do it. We saw a couple of high-quality animals do that in the past, but not a lot, and not recently a lot. But he's got the best pilot in the game, and he's got the look of a horse that's thriving and dying for that mile and a quarter.
Brandon, we talked to Chad Brown. We heard from Chad Brown yesterday on tape, and we've been following Chad's career for years. He's obviously a phenomenal trainer, known more for turf. He's had a lot of success on dirt. This is by far his best Derby chance, and you can just sense, listening to him, Brandon, he's got a lot of confidence with Xandan.
Yeah, I mean, just look at this horse on the screen. I mean, if you were sending this horse out to the track to train and get ready to run in a race, I mean, I think you'd be pretty confident too. It doesn't take an expert to see that this horse really enjoys what he does out there. The ears are pricked. This horse is just telling you he wants to run. He just loves being out here. We saw the Keeneland workout. We've seen now this is the 3rd day of him galloping on track. We've seen the same horse every time, and this is what I talk about what we're looking for. We're just looking for horses that are consistent. They come out and do the same thing. They show us a lot. Even right here when he's trying to be pulled up a little bit, he's not tossing the head, but you can just kind of tell he's like, well, you know, I kind of want to do a little more, but all right, I'll listen to you. We'll go back to the barn.
Talk about his stride, because one of the things Chad mentioned was he has a big reach on him. What does he mean by that, and what does that mean for going a mile and a quarter? So
usually when, especially during workouts, races, we're looking at the way the horse kind of strides out down the lane. He is kind of a taller horse, so he's built a little bit with longer legs, but when he really starts to stride out, you can see he really throws those front legs out and really reaches to the wire. That just is another sign, too, that the horse is really wanting to extend that stride and really reach out and use its body. I mean, that's what really separates some of the elite horses, being able to use their body and lengthen that body in a short amount of time.
Is that a concern for the Kentucky Derby? Obviously, there's 20 horses and a lot going on. You have a taller horse. Does that present traffic issues?
I mean, I think it can. I think we saw in the Bluegrass that the horse obviously has the mental capability to kind of take some, you know, some kickback, and also some maybe a couple of horses coming over in front of him. So it might take him, you know, if he does get shuffled back a little bit longer to get going. But, you know, that's when it's up to the horse and the jockey to kind of become one, and hopefully they can work out the trip they need.
Keep sending those questions in, hashtag KY Derby. Happy to answer those as we continue on with the Oaks and Derby training session. And Brandon, here's Barber Road, whose head's down. He looks a little bit on the keyed up side. Is that a good read from our vantage point?
Yeah, I mean, he's a little keyed up, but I wouldn't. I mean, the one thing where you're looking for, as far as it was a negative, would be the horse kind of tossing his head up and just not listening to the rider. For the most part, this has been a well-behaved group out here. You know, you can kind of see he's throwing the head up just a touch, but it's more like he kind of wants to do a little more out there. Not a negative at all whatsoever. That's what you kind of want to see, is some of that controlled energy like we saw from Zandon, like Barber Road is kind of showing here. What we don't want to see is when they're really just kind of tossing the head up and just basically just fighting the rider, where the rider has really no control and not listening to the rider.
Sadie on Facebook is asking us whether or not Xandan is a black or dark bay, and I don't think they truly distinguish which one it is. He's just a really good-looking horse, a real dark color. That's Sadie on Facebook. I think he's more dark bay than black. I don't think I've ever really heard of a true black thoroughbred.
Yeah, I would go with dark bay, although it does, on the past performances, dark bay brown. So I'm not.
Yeah, I'm going to say Dark Bay. Here, Summer is Tomorrow. We talked about him as being a horse that could really influence the first part of this race. If you go back and watch his replays from Dubai, this horse has sprint speed. He is legitimately fast.
He is, and if he gets out of the gate, he very well could be on the lead, and he also has the slight potential of running off a little bit. You know, first start here in the States, you know, not making any sort of hypothesis that he will, but it is feasible because you mentioned he's a sprinter. He is a huge key to this race. If you're backing horses like Mo Donegal, like Xandan, like Barber Road, you want Summer is Tomorrow to get out of the gates and make his presence felt right away. The problem is a lot of these horses coming in from the UA Derby, you know, they're all individual animals, small sample size, but the ones we've seen, a lot of them have struggled out of the gate.
And we mentioned coming out of the gate there, Brandon. Why is it that when they come from overseas and they come race here in America, oftentimes these foreign starters have a hard time getting out of our starting gates?
You know, I think it was interesting listening to the connections of Crown Pride talk the other day about when they broke out of the gate. They're not sometimes used to hearing the bell, so I think that's one thing. And you know, the gates just kind of open sometimes and they go out. And I think the style of racing sometimes too, where our riders are very aggressive, they'll push the horse out of the gate, and after a while, horses understand that. And I think those are probably a couple of reasons why we see some of the horses coming over from overseas break a little slow.
American racing, Scott, is really all about speed, particularly on dirt. Going a mile and a quarter, you need to have a little bit of speed to get that position. That's the big question for Summer is Tomorrow. Does he really want to get those 10 furlongs, and is he going to go too fast early?
It's going to be tough for him to get the 10 furlongs shipping over here. You know, it's tough for us, as we talked about with Crown Pride, we talked about with Shahama, you know, gauging the competition that these horses have faced. The one thing in this case, though, Summer is Tomorrow and Crown Pride come out of the same race, so we can kind of assess them a little bit against each other. But this is a horse that needs to be on the lead or needs to be out there to have any chance. If he doesn't get out of the gates, he's up against it. It's going to be a wasted trip, probably.
And sorry to interrupt, guys. I just wanted to mention something real quick. So Summers Tomorrow walked by down here. Is a little wet in the coat. I have not seen that the whole time he's been here. So a little wet in the coat, something to maybe just kind of jot down in your notes. And like I said, it's pretty chilly up here. It's about 45, 50 degrees. So just something new today. You can kind of see there's a good shot there. That lather, especially behind on the hind end, and then that lather up around the neck. That's something a little new today. So we want to keep an eye on that as we go forward.
So what is it about that lather that makes that something to take note of?
I mean, sometimes it's possibly the horse maybe is a little worked up, possibly something could be bothering the horse, but it's a change, and that's what we look for when we look at the training, whether it's through the gallops, the workouts, particularly with this show, or anytime we're down here, maybe I'm down here watching gallops after a horse comes out of a work. We're just looking for changes. We don't really want to see too many changes. We want positive changes, if anything, but the negative changes would be something like this, where we've seen this horse several days on track. He hasn't gotten worked up, and the other thing I mentioned is the temperature. I mean, it's one thing if it's a humid 75-degree morning, but it's 45 out here. It's a little chilly. We haven't seen this before, so it's just something we want to keep an eye on and kind of watch as we go forward.
Showing some energy, or maybe a little bit of nervous energy, and sort of makes a little bit concerned about how he's going to handle 150,000 people on the first Saturday in May, Scott.
Hopefully he can handle them like you do, cool, calm customer. But that is going to be key. It's a key for any of these 20 horses. But when there's a new environment, it kind of makes those keys or whatever a little bit more evident and a little more likely that maybe he won't react positively.
Yeah, we mentioned Xandan. We've got to ask whether or not he was a dark bay or black horse. A dark bay or brown is what he's officially listed to in the program. We're taking another look here at Xandan, who I hate to overstate it, but has just looked fantastic day in and day out.
He was a horse I've been high on, and it was hard not to be high on him running that race in the Remsen. He had the trouble in the Risen Star, ran good off the bench, made a move after a slow start, and Epicenter was on the lead, loose and lonely that day, and then the powerful effort in the Bluegrass. His professionalism is obvious. He's thriving at the right time, and I'm going to gush a little with you.
Oh, there you go. I think that's going to be your top pick. I'm sensing it. I'm sensing it's going to be your top pick. A couple more questions coming in on the social channels. Michelle on Facebook wants to know more on the exercise riders and their roles. And I'll throw this to Brandon, who has a little bit more experience than Shap and I being around the racetrack. And Brandon, Sometimes they're just exercise riders and they ride a bunch of horses in the morning. Other times they take on more wide roles in the barn.
Yeah, I mean, usually you're going to see the same riders with the same barn, I mean, for many, many years. And their job is to, a lot of them will get on the same horse every day, but just get out here and get the job done what the trainer wants. Usually those are going to be gallops. Sometimes they'll be workouts, usually maybe once a week, depending on the class level of the horse. But, yeah, I mean, their job is basically to get out here and they're kind of like they're, in their way, like a coach when they're on track. I mean, they're on their back. They get to know these horses really well. They get to know their tendencies. And one thing that the riders do a great job of, and this is, I think, what trainers like to utilize a lot, is when the riders come back and they get off of the horse, they can give a lot of great feedback. That's why you see guys like a Johnny Ortiz. He likes to get on his own horses. There's other trainers that do that too, to get that feedback, because trainers that aren't on the horses, they obviously maybe not pick up on things, say, hey, maybe we need to change the bit here, or this horse doesn't like to be inside, he didn't like the kickback. I mean, those are things that the exercise riders can provide.
Truly is a team effort. It's an operation from top to bottom. A lot of people get their hands on the horses every morning. It's not just the trainer. You got the groom, the exercise rider. One of the decisions they have to make, Scott, is whether or not to put blinkers on. And Lynn on Facebook is asking, what are blinkers?
Blinkers are a piece of equipment that goes over the horse's eyes and on their head. And oftentimes it can be used to get a horse out of the gate, get them in more speed. But generally, the idea is to keep them from, kind of tunnel vision, so they're not seeing a lot of things. And they're going to see a lot of things in the Kentucky Derby when they turn for home in that far turn, Travis, with the 150,000 people there. So, yeah, blinkers can often be used for focus.
We've been a little bit spoiled this year because a lot of the horses for the Oaks and Derby have been stabled at Churchill Downs for a while now. A few more are set to ship in after this weekend. And Chris on YouTube is wondering, Brandon, is there an advantage to shipping in earlier or closer to the race?
Yeah, we get this question asked a lot. I think it just depends sometimes on the horse. You mentioned nervous horses. If you have a nervous horse, or maybe one that's lightly raced or younger, you may want to get them here a little bit earlier and get them settled in. As far as working over the surface, in the past, it's kind of been hit and miss sometimes. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't matter. But I think the biggest thing is just the acclimation. If it was me training the horse, I mean, I feel like it would always be an advantage to kind of be on track a few weeks ahead of time, like you said, just to get settled in, especially being out of town, get your horse settled in, get yourself settled in, and just kind of get into a rhythm and get some good vibes going into race day.
You can see the Churchill Downs trackside is open up to fans to come out and watch those horses. I would have killed when I was 8, 9, or 10 years old to come out and watch these races. And hopefully some of those kids we just saw on TV get involved in the gambling side when they're legal. And there's some good promotions lingering around Twin Spires this week.
Yeah, none better than the money-back offer, Travis, where you place a win bet on any race, and if the horse wins, you get paid like you win. That's the obvious goal. But a little bit of insurance. If your horse runs second or third, you'll get up to $10 back in your account. And a lot of times these promotions, you get your money back on a Monday if you bet on a Saturday. But not this one. Throughout Derby weekend on opening night, you'll get your money back basically right away. Not within 10 seconds, but enough time to get ready for the next race. But remember to opt in to the promotion.
Scott knows how long it takes to get his money back because he picks a lot of horses and bets a lot of horses that run second and third. Sorry, I had to do it. Okay, we're continuing on here as we near the end of our show, which gives us a good opportunity to remind everybody on Monday is the draw. That used to be Monday, Tuesday. Now both draws are going to happen at the same time, presented by Ford, Monday at 2 o'clock. You can watch that live, and of course you can watch it on tape delay, but I suggest watching it live. Take an hour out of your workday to watch the draw. We talk about these horses all morning long, and they look good. They're doing this or doing that. Man, everything can go out the window with a bad draw.
Yep, and there's horses more than others that I think I'll be watching for. Some of the lightly race runners, Taba, Cyberknife, Charge It. Probably don't want to draw to the inside, but love that we're doing this on Monday at 2 p.m. instead of on Tuesday for the Derby. Some extra time for us to handicap the race.
I think there's going to be 14 at least in the Oaks, and there's certainly going to be 20 in the Derby. So posts, even in the Oaks, I mean, it's a less run to the first turn, one furlong shorter. Post matters there too.
No, it does. I mean, we handicap races every day that are 10, 9, 10, 8 horses, and I look at posts in those races. Not always, but definitely a 14-horse field. It's going to matter. We know it matters for a 20-horse field.
Brandon, as we wind up this morning and think about getting into the weekend, we head into those final round of works. A lot of times those are maintenance works. What are you looking for as we continue on?
Yeah, I mean, same thing we always talk about, Travis. We just want to see that these horses are thriving going into their works and then coming out of the works. This weekend, it sounds like we're going to get some pretty stiff works. We're going to get Classic Causeway's going to go 6 furlongs. Sounds like Todd's maybe going to squeeze on his horses a little bit, and I like to see that. I mean, going into a big race like this, I want horses that are ready to peak, and you know, at this point. You should be sturdy enough to be able to handle this test, and you're going to need every ounce of that speed. You're going to need every furlong of that gallop out in order to be successful in the Kentucky Derby.
Thank you, Brandon, and good job this morning. We'll see you throughout the rest of the week. And Scott, you punted when I asked you about your $25 bet back and putting you back on the spot. We've got people watching around the world. They need a horse to bet in the Derby. Who would it be? $25?
Yeah, we'll go with Xandan, you know, on the spot. Going to be at least 4-1, if not hopefully a little bit higher. A horse that I think is extremely likely to run his race. Trip will matter, of course, in there, but we'll go with that. Risk-free. Why not take a chance with a horse that has a likely chance to win it?
Are you worried about the pace? He needs some pace to close into. And the pace on paper right now, yeah, we'll see what Classic Causeway does in his workout this weekend. But when I handicap this race and I look at the PPs, every other session I'm like, I don't really know what this pace is going to be.
The more I look at it, the more confused I get because there's so many different – there's a large range of outcomes, as we like to say. You know, there's a horse like Summers tomorrow that could be on the lead. We don't know if he'll show up. You've got other horses that are lightly raced. You've got Epicenter, who showed a lot of different tactics. So it's murky, but I think it's going to be honest at the very least, and I think he's the best horse.
It's a 2-furlong run to the turn. There's 150,000 people. They're going to be jockeying for position. Inevitably, the pace in the Kentucky Derby becomes sharp. We'll see what really shakes out come next Saturday. We're back at this tomorrow. I won't be here. Joe will be back. But also tomorrow is Rosie Napravnik. She knows a thing about two about winning big horse races at Churchill.
Excited to get her back. She was excellent last year. Great insight. Much different than the way we look at horse races. Rosie, very established, and very much looking forward to having her back. And you, great job.
I appreciate that. Us horse players have strong opinions. A lot of times we rail those jockeys with bad rides here or there, and then you get to talk to a jockey, and it's like, I should have thought about that. Anyway, Scott Shapiro, Brandon Staubel, it was great to be with you here this morning. We're back at it tomorrow, 7 o'clock to 8 o'clock. The last workout show will be next Thursday. Kentucky Derby drawing closer. Have a great day, everybody.